I'm Mark Fowler, lead pastor at First Church. I want to talk about grace, the grace of Christmas. This wonderful Santa Claus was a promotion for chocolate. You would stuff this with chocolate. But every year, as I take it out, it's empty. But I realize that it will be full soon. Full and then given, and full and then given, and full and then given again. This is the gift that keeps on giving, the gift of God at Christmas, the gift of Jesus to us. Howard Thurman is my companion, our companion, during this time that goes from first to fourth Advent. The Dean Emeritus at Boston University, one of the beginners of the spirit and the theology and the hope that came in the birth of the civil rights movement, a mentor to Dr. King and to me. One of the pieces that I read first when I was a student at Boston University School of Theology that had been mimeographed in those days and left around in the Howard Thurman seminar room was called The Graces of Christmas, and I'd like to share that with you now. For many devout Christians all over the world, December 25th marks a dramatic moment in the series of dramatic moments by which the will of God has manifested itself within the time-space involvements of human life. They regard the birth of Jesus as a moment when God was introduced into time in the form of the Incarnation. Many other Christians are sure that this day marks the birth of a baby who grew up to be a good person, one of the best people who ever lived, a person who in tenderness and graciousness and in sensitivity set a new standard for the meaning and the worth of the individual. Many others regard him as one who came into the world as anyone else comes into the world, and as a result of the way he lived and the intensity of experience of God, he became more and more available to the mind and the spirit and to the will of God, and achieved a personhood which was not his at birth. It doesn't matter, writes Thurman, from one point of view, which one of these orientations or another is yours. Or, it does matter a great deal. But the important thing is that to the mother of Jesus, he was a baby boy who grew hungry, who had to be fed, bathed, nurtured, who had to be given tender, loving care, one who pulled at her heartstrings, and who became so much a part of her sense of worth and meaning that she was sure, in a sense, that this was the first baby in all the world. And perhaps every mother feels, particularly after their first baby, that this is the first. This is the original baby. And this can be understood. The story of Christmas has certain very simple human things that appeal to my kind of mind and spirit. A family, a woman, a man, a child, animals, simple surroundings, the primary family unit. There is always the possibility that the first steps in love, in trust, in confidence, can be measured, developed, and expanded. So that when we think of Christmas, let us think of it as a time when we remember the graces of life. It is important to seize upon the atmosphere created during this period, to let it tutor our own spirits in kindness and in imaginative sympathy. Thus we may be able to give ourselves freely to the babies in our midst, to sustain them in their growth into youth and maturity. We must do our part to guarantee that all children may have the chance to be children, to experience their own childhood, If this does not happen to them, they will be forced to deal with their environment as if they were adults. There can be no good future for humanity if this sensitivity to the birth and meaning of the child that we see in Christmas is ignored. I was a seminary student when I first read that, grappling with the many arguments about who Jesus Christ, Jesus, the man from Nazareth, might be. But I do come to the place now where every little baby is like the one Thurman describes, the most important, the first in all the earth. But I'm also aware, as you are aware, that many of these children are not allowed to be children. Refugees, those who are taken from their parents, those who are forced to grow up in poverty, those who suffer violence. At one and the same time, it is the particularity of Jesus, born in Bethlehem, child of Nazareth, the particularity of every child born to loving parents, but also the universality, the claim, and the hope that all children are raised and nurtured as children. And I believe that is why Jesus, in his adulthood, always turned aside and put children first for the redemption of all humanity, to love, faith, peace, hope, and joy. God's grace be with you all.